Welcome back to the Enjoy the Walk podcast, ladies and gentlemen. There's buzz around the golf industry as the rangefinder is going to see itself in a major championship for the first time ever in golf history. Your host here, Dalton Deerdorf, with Dante Frederico. Dante, what do you make of the hoopla that is rangefinders in a major?
I mean, if 2020 and 2021 couldn't just get any weirder and just all types of stories just hitting the fan, I mean, this just kind of goes hand in hand. I know there was always talk about it. I never thought there would be actually implementation and yes, them saying, yeah, go right ahead and use it. Uh, to me, I'm really not a fan, and honestly, I don't think it's going to really. I think it might actually slow up play. Uh, and I'll give you my reason here in a bit. But I honestly also don't think it's really going to do anything.
Well, that's the way, right? Like, this is the whole crutch of why I think maybe the PGA took a stab at this and said, "Hey, let's try it." I think it was because of pace of play. I honestly do. Because why else would you implement an electronic measuring device other than for to help guys get reads quicker, right?
Yeah.
And I think as we'll get into it, like you said, of your reason why you think it's going to slow things down, and I kind of agree with that. Some tour pros sounded off, including Colin Morikawa, the seventh ranked player in the world, Will Zalatoris, who's been on an absolute tear, Fred Funk, Brittany Lincecum, even on the women's side of the ball, kind of sounded in. But first, I want to hear your take. Why do you think it's going to slow things up on tour, and especially at a PGA major championship?
Well, I mean, they get all these practice rounds, they get all this preparation. They can even go to probably the courses like weeks in advance, and you have a team for a reason. You
Mhm.
have like your caddies out there getting all the measuring devices anyway, pre actual tournament round. But all right, so they give you all the necessities that you need. They give you green reading books. They give you pin location sheets that tell you exactly where the pin location's going to be, and then they give you yardage books. So you have it all really kind of there
Mhm.
in multiple pieces. It's just not necessarily in an actual electronic device. So to me is all right, you know where you know your distances, you know where your strategy is going to be off the tee. If you're relatively in that point, you already know how many yards you're going to have into the thing. So now
Mhm.
you take an added piece to it and actually scope directly because you're going to know where the pin location is, and it's really not necessarily. I mean, you've probably played tournaments before, and you probably have a better understanding of the pin location sheets, and can correct me if I'm wrong. But half the time they're in that area, but they're not going to be 100%
Mhm.
right because it's just common human error at times. So when you get to the point of that, now you have another addition of distance measuring that you're going to have that you as the player or the caddy are going to contemplate as to what club's going to be hit. So I think that's going to be an addition of the thought process to their pre-shot routine, and I think it might add a couple seconds. It may not be that drastic, but I honestly think it could potentially make the round a lot slower.
Well, I almost argue kind of what you were just touching there right at the end of what you were saying. Will it make a difference? Maybe a couple seconds. I don't think it's gonna automatically make slow players fast players. I think if you're a slow player already, it almost just adds another variable, right? Because like
Yeah.
before you had this rangefinder in your hands, you would find your yardage, step off your yardage based on the work your caddy did all week before, like you were saying, the practice rounds, the Mondays, the Tuesdays, the Wednesdays that these guys document in these courses, making lists, making their yardage book as detailed as possible, and then going out and saying, all right, I got 10 paces off of this marker here. Here's what it is to the front, middle, back. Here's our pin sheet. Here's what the pin sheet looks like. It's 6 paces off the front, 7 paces off the right. Here's where we got to attack. And I think at the end of the day, when you have all of that information already, what do you need a rangefinder for? I get it. You're trying to shoot something like, immediate and not have to take an extra 10 steps here, 10 steps there. But on the grand scheme of things, I think it's just going to add another variable to these guys saying, all right, well, here's another number that I have to think about and another number that, has to play into, well, what club am I hitting? And at the end of the day, I like the attempt at trying to build pace of play and decrease these long rounds. But I just don't think this implementation of rangefinders is the way to do it.
No. And kind of to go off of that, what you're just saying, I mean, really kind of think about it. Comparing to the regular weekend am playing a round of golf compared to your poor professional. When they get a number, for you and I or even other AMs out there, we scope it. It's like, all right, 150 to the flag. We're playing a 150-yard shot. Well, the pros are like, okay, well, front's 132, the pin's going to be 150, the back's going to be say 54. They're playing to a spot based on what they know with what club they're hitting and what distance they're going to be. All right, am I going to hit, what type of shot am I going to hit? Am I going to hit like a little? They're going to take all these variables in and decide what type of shot they're going to hit to an exact number. Do I want to throw it behind the hole and let it spin back? Do I want to kind of hit it low, knock some spin off of it and let it hit up front and then roll it towards the hole? They're not going flag hunting per se. They're finding a spot on the green, or they're finding kind of general area of what exact shot and number they're going to hit.
Well, and I think,
so this flag scoping all the time and just pin seeking, that doesn't necessarily go.
I think Fred Funk here put it best. Longtime PGA Tour veteran, plays on the senior tour now. He said, "I think it's about time. It's just another tool to attempt to speed up play, but at the end of the day, it will never replace the yardage book. With all the green reading software or green reading books that we have at the time, you're already just stepping yardages and finding your spot on the green. Like you just said, you're looking for a spot on the green. You're not looking to pin seek. These guys, 90% of the time, are not taking dead aim, especially with how fast and firm these greens are. They're trying to put it in a position in which the ball feeds to the hole. They're not looking to land it unless they have a little flip wedge in their hand. They're not looking to, handle it the way that I think a lot of the masses are thinking of, like, oh, they can just shoot the pin and problem solved. Now, where I do think it might actually be an advantage to these players, not just one or two players, but for every player that puts it in the bag, that weird yardage of like 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards, where you have that, which is typically a feel shot to this point. They're going to know exact numbers. And if all of these guys are spending so much time on Trackman and so much time practicing these feel shots, that all of a sudden they're not feel anymore. You have an exact number. And to a point, yes, they are feel, but I feel like it's going to improve a lot of guys' guessing games around the greens and around these awkward style pitch shots.
It's just going to, well, I agree there. It's just going to make the game a lot more mechanical than it really is about the whole concept of, you're just going to have the debate with modern day golf versus old school golf, and they're just going to separate again further from each other. I mean, I just think it might hurt that way too. Like you said, you're going to have all these field shots. Okay, if you're 50 yards, you're just going to have this mechanical swing. Oh, I know what club to hit and where to take it. And then if you do like the clock system, you just know exactly how to do it, and you're just going to hit the number, and then it's going to be stuck to the hole rather than you're going to take probably the feel out of the game. But I think on kind of like a different level where it will take advantage, and here's a couple scenarios. It's more of those erratic, errant tee shots that are just putting them in like weird spots off the fairway. Like, for example, the British Open with Jordan Spieth, when he was in, where he like was so offline and he was in the driving range.
Yeah, he was basically right of the tour trucks.
Exactly. And he had to move in all the tour trucks, and it took all that time for them to move the trucks and all that, and kind of he was discussing with Greller on what exactly is the number and what to hit. You take that out of it and just scope it, boom, okay, cool, you're going to keep things moving. I will agree with that. It's those errant tee shots, but you have the best in the business. How many times do you see that going on during a round?
Well, that's exactly the way Will Zalatoris put it too. He said, for instance, back in the Farmers, I hit one right of 14. So far right, I had to walk 45 yards over to grab a yardage, 40 yards back from my caddy, and my caddy had to walk that twice to get me a yardage. So he's like, instances where you absolutely blow it off the golf course, then the rangefinder might come in handy. But he said, I truly only might have needed it twice during the entire round. And I think that's what it's going to boil down to, all right, great. Are we going to improve from 5-hour rounds to 4-hour rounds because there's a rangefinder on the bag? Probably not. Actually, I know definitely not. These guys are too methodical, too, I think, driven in their routines to make a true massive difference, but it might help 15 or 20 minutes here.
It might, and I think it's going to kind of come down. I think everybody's excited, thinking that you're going to see Justin Thomas like pull up to a shot and feel like, well, what's the yardage? And he's just going to pull out the rangefinder and then scope it and see what number he has. No, it's going to be in the caddy's pocket. It's probably in their front right or front left pocket, and they're just hey, what's the number? Like the tour player himself is not going to use it at all. It's just going to probably benefit the caddy from giving him a more accurate number of what they have into the greens or wherever they're at and whatever they need.
Absolutely. Now, Brittany Lincecum, we were talking about men's and women's side of the ball. I think with this ruling, the way I'm understanding it, both the PGA of America men's championship and women's championship will be able to use it. So it's going across the board at the PGA of America's, major championships. Brittany Lincecum weighed in on it, and I think it brings an alternative kind of approach maybe or thought process. And I want you to weigh in on it too. She says the use of distance measuring devices is already a commonality within the game. The problem is where will rules officials draw the line? Can we use slope? Can we not use slope? And if we can or cannot, how are folks going to tell? So Brittany Lincecum brings up a great point. Do you even allow rangefinders that can be inside the ropes that give you slope, or do you just say if you want to bring it inside the ropes, it cannot tell you slope?
Yeah, you're probably gonna have that. It's probably gonna be like a huge money maker, and it's for Bushnell and whatnot. Because think about it, you're probably gonna go back to the first version of the Tour V3, and you're gonna just make this Tour only one where it's literally just scope, number, and that's it. Not even give them the opportunity to even flip the switch to give it the slope reading as well. So
Now
it's good. They're gonna limit it to that. That's where if you want to talk about an equipment kind of modification as to how far you can use it or what they're allowing, it's going to be rangefinders, and they're going to have a tour specific version where it's just the most generic version ever.
I hope you're right. I hope the PGA Tour or the PGA of America goes about this right now. Now, this is where a lot of people I feel like get it twisted too, because I just kind of slipped up there as well. The PGA of America is different than the PGA Tour. This isn't every tour event. This isn't, inside the ropes week in and week out. It's just at one major, correct? Just at the PGA Championship. So it'll be interesting to see if this starts a trickle down effect with everybody else, or where else this starts to get implemented within the game.
Yeah, and then I kind of like to play hypothetical or kind of see where this could take. Like, so say like fast forward, right? That this is allowed everywhere. Like,
build the story, Dante. Build the story.
How's this going to really affect kind of the caddies' jobs and the caddies' cuts and whatnot? Because you're taking a huge factor, one of the biggest factors out of the caddies' job per se, in what they do for their living. I mean, they basically go out, a couple of days before and walk the course themselves. They know their players' numbers. They find the best spots on the course, and then they find the best misses, and then they draw all their multiple numbers based on factors of the player's ability, and they're already going to have those numbers. So what's that going to do to preparation on the caddies end of the job going into it? Are caddies just going to get quote unquote lazier? Or they're just going to be like, whatever, we'll wing it, I'll figure it out. I mean, that's going to be kind of an interesting hypothetical, what's going to happen there.
I'm going to tell you right now that the top caddies in the country aren't going to change a thing. They're going to go out there, they're going to do their homework, they're going to be the best possible assistant to their player that they can be. I think any top 100 caddy will tell you nothing's going to change. I think at the end of the day, what it does for those guys is just maybe make a decision or two a little easier. At the end of the day, if you have a toss up and say, well, are you sure that, are you sure? If a player questions a caddy, they can zip it real quick and say, yes, that's exactly where the pin is. It's not a, hey, my stride's a little longer than yours and vice versa. That's exactly where the pin is. So I think if a caddy gets lazy, they're going to get fired pretty quick if they start to rely on the rangefinder.
Yeah, most likely. I agree with you that. But another thing that kind of came to my mind after looking at all of this is thinking about kind of the, I guess you could say the low man on the totem pole, if per se, however you want to say it. Think of like the AM. Like, what if they did this for like the U.S. Open, right? Think of this
Mhm.
amateur player or this, this guy who's grinding, he's status himself as a pro, and he's trying to grind his way to make it on tour, and just doesn't really have the money or necessarily the following or kind of the investors to help him get to where he needs to go, because we all know how expensive it is. And like, say he just is like a Roy McIlroy, just goes out and qualifies for like the U.S. Open, but doesn't necessarily, just picks up just some just Joe Schmo guy playing, hey, I'll carry your bag to alleviate all the pressure off of your back.
Sure.
Maybe the guy has no experience. I think that may benefit the player themselves, because then they can just scope it and just see, all right, where am I at? Because then they can probably more prep than their games for, say, like, think about it. Okay, if you don't have a caddy that really is this absolute stud in that type of position, and it's like
Mhm.
kind of knows like pretty good caddy methodology and just needs to know what they need to do, and just takes the player on the course and carries the bag, or kind of has a general idea on what to do. But the player then prepping for the tournament days in advance, or maybe they just show up like that Thursday and play. I think the rangefinder would be very beneficial for him on certain spots of knowing where the flag actually is and how much he has to
Absolutely.
do.
I do think for those Monday qualifiers, for those guys that kind of, shove themselves in the back ends of these tournaments, it can't hurt, right? Like it
No,
can't be of a disadvantage to have that extra rangefinder. But again, we're not talking about PGA Tour events just quite yet. We're only talking about the majors, so, or just one major even. So if it trickles down and starts being a tour thing, then awesome. I think it allows everyone to have kind of this extra little, I guess you could call it a crutch. But I feel like, you start looking at the comparisons. Everyone compares Jordan to LeBron and says this day and age of basketball is softer than Jordan's era and whatnot, right? Are we starting to get to that point where people are going to start saying this about golf now too? This golf era, you have so much technology. It's a different area than the Jack and Arnie era. I mean, I think that's a fair
even
comparison when you start to look at all this technology. It's making itself
that,
inside the
and
ropes.
even the 90s and early 2000s, or even the early 2010s, they didn't really necessarily have all this type of technology to, I mean, they didn't really have Trackman. Not
Mm-mm.
every tour player had Trackman, or you were lucky enough to have it. I mean, every single player that steps on to the grounds, I mean, they have their team, they have a team with them now, like a full team of like four guys or whatever. Um, I mean, they have a nutritionist, they have a physical trainer, they got the guy who carries their Trackman. I mean, they got the caddy. I mean, they got the agent. I mean, they're rolling squad deep now, and it's definitely a different game and different era now. So yeah, I would. It's different from like the 50s, 60s, 70s. It's different from the 80s, 90s, and it's way different from like the 2000s, 2010s. It's a completely different era of game. So yeah, there's debates on who's the best and what era is better at golf, and who's better at what, and who sucks at this and who sucks at that. It's gonna be
I
gonna be interesting, because you're gonna have the old heads talk about how their field game is so much better than these guys' short game. But it's
Exactly where
just
I was getting at. Yep, exactly where I was getting at. And I think, it leads to more conversation and more fun banter between, you're those purists and the technology lovers of the game. At the end of the day, me personally, I don't see it being a bad thing for the game, letting rangefinders in. When you look at the grand scheme, we talk about always, right? Like the 99% versus the 1% inside the ropes. Everybody has a rangefinder on their bags tacked onto it at the amateur level, at the member guest level. Whatever tournament, every college player has one on their bags. So at the end of the day, are we really changing the way the game looks? I don't think so. I just think we're kind of normalizing it inside the ropes, if anything.
I think so. I mean, if you want to spin it on a positive thing, it's another aspect of the game that can make the regular amateur weekend golfer feel as if they are closer to what the pros. because we talk about this all the time. This is one of the very few sports where it's really no different from the pros down to the am if you want to talk about a grand scheme of things. It's the same game, right? It's the same
For sure.
equipment. It's the same. It's just the it's golf, and I think that's what makes golf so special is that factor of it. So allowing the tour to basically use it's like, hey, welcome to our world now. You know what I mean? But I still think I'm still a believer that I think it actually may slow things up a bit. But like we said earlier, I do think it really may not be that drastic. I don't think they're going to use it as much as most people are thinking that it's going to be.
No, not at all. Now that's you talked about bringing the fan experience into it too, or a little bit, or maybe it just popped into my head. Do you think the PGA Championship utilizes a Bushnell sponsorship or a whatever sponsorship to maybe not microchip these rangefinders inside the ropes, but maybe bring a fan experience and let you look through the scope as these caddies or these players are getting their yardage every hole? I think they should. If they don't, I want royalties for the idea.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the shot tracer technology, I guess you can say. Compare that to you just on the screen, you look at it, and it's like this robotic scope, and it scopes the pin, and
Yeah,
get
give
this
me the
little graphic.
crosshairs on the 50-inch TV, man. Let me see what they're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they play it out, or I mean, see what kind of like maybe it might give a little bit better insight of the player caddy conversation as to
Mhm.
numbers as they're playing, because then that's another thing they can put on the graphic screen is pins here, and then you can kind of see like exactly where they're going to have to play it.
For sure. No, I think it's from a branding standpoint and from a marketing standpoint, there's a lot of room to have some fun with it. So I'm excited to see how they implement it. Maybe they'll just kind of throw it under the radar and say, "Oh yeah, it'll be the talk of the telecast." I can guarantee you this: the talking heads on the shows 9 to 5 and then some watching this tournament. That's all they'll be talking about is the
Now,
implementation of rangefinders in
now they
2021.
said just rangefinders. Is it electronic measuring devices or is it just rangefinders?
I don't know. I don't know the specifics. It's a very vague article at this point.
Yeah.
They're sort of leaving it up to chance at this point, is the way I
Imagine
understand
them
it.
rolling around with the GPS watches, logging into their Apple Watch or
Oh,
whatnot,
there's
and
no
just start
chance that
sitting there
happens.
scoping.
It's definitely just rangefinders. If you're talking that juxtaposition, it's definitely just rangefinders at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Um, I'm actually interested to see how much it's actually used on the grand schemes of all the players.
Yeah, you and me both, man. You and me both. Um, Other big news we were talking about, before we hopped on the podcast here, we were talking about an old legend of the game coming back and competing on the women's side of the ball. Annika Sorenstam's coming back, and I guess wants to chop it up with the best of the best down in Florida, pretty close to her home now in Orlando. She's got 72 wins on the LPGA tour. From a dominant standpoint, she was probably one of the most dominant female players of all time. It's going to be her first time stepping back inside the ropes since 2008 when she decided to have a family and kind of take some, I guess, quote unquote, alone time. She's been around as a commentator here and there, but what are your thoughts on the absolute legend on the LPGA stepping back and competing with the best of them out there?
I mean, I think that's incredible. I think that's awesome because, and that's another factor of why I love golf is because there's really no age limit.
Mhm.
As long as you have the ability to play and keep up and contend, I think you'll be able to continue to play. I say go for it. I mean, it's kind of like the Tom Brady factor, I guess you can say. Maybe that could have sparked her competitive juices to play again. I mean, you see, and then like the Tiger aspect too. I mean, you see these guys getting up in age, and you look at general sports as a whole. It's kind of a shame that once you hit like the 30 mark, that's like a third of your like. I mean, most people are living to their 90s, so that's like a third of your
Yeah.
lifetime, and you're gonna tell me that my career is over and I can't play sports anymore. I just don't think. one, I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's right because I mean, I mean, 40 is the new. I mean, everything's going backwards. 40 is the new 30, 50 is the new 40, 60 is the new 50. I mean, everybody's getting like an extra 10 years on their life, and as long as you stay, active and fit and a better, healthy lifestyle, you can continue to compete forever. As long as you can keep up,
I'm telling you
why
what,
keep going?
I don't know if it was TB12's rise to dominance in the playoffs of the NFL that brought Annika back, or what it was, or if it was Tiger's kind of resurrection of his career, but it's going to be exciting to see. She made a funny comment. I'm reading an article written today. So she played in, I guess, their quote unquote pro-am yesterday. And she said, I realized that if I need to play in a 4-day event in tournament style, I'm going to have to get more reps than what I typically do. She's like, I typically don't even play all 18 at Lake Nona, which is the course she's playing this week, her hometown course. She's like, I typically don't play all 18 very often. So it's pretty evident I just need to play the entire course more than once or twice a month.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I think that's probably like I I don't compete on tour, but I would think that might be the hardest part of the aspect. I mean, obviously, you can play. You probably play pretty regularly. Go out for leisure. I mean, the swing's still there. I mean, you know your game. I think it's just one. It's the mental side of the things and the
Mhm.
competitive mode, and it's just being able to keep the body going for 3, 4 straight days of 18 holes. That's like with the mental side of things and just being out there all day and just grinding over every shot, that can wear on your body as well physically. So and then I mean, look how many times you've gone out and played just one day of a tournament. That I mean, because you and I, we don't really play too many tournaments. I mean, we would like to. We'd like to get more into it, but
Mhm.
man, that one tournament you go, you're up super early, you're pumped to play, you go play, you're grinding over everything, and then you have to drive back, and by the time you're home, it's maybe 5 o'clock in the evening, and 6 o'clock rolls around, and you're passed out on the couch, and the next thing you know, you're waking up, and the next day you're like, oh shit, I gotta go to work.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, Annika's not gonna have very far to drive after every round. She lives off the 16th hole at this course, so she's gonna have a little bit of VIP access out there. So it'll be fun to watch, man. I'm excited to see her play. If she makes the cut, like let's be realistic here. It's been 13 years since she steps inside the ropes. If she makes the cut, it's gonna be one of the best stories of golf that we're gonna have this week. Let alone the Pebble Beach that's going on, this week as well. As Jeff Mosini over on our Clubhouse Talks considers it the no am this week because there's a very limited amount of amateurs at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am this week. Let's dive into that. Actually, let's dive in before we dive into Pebble Beach. Some of these Clubhouse Talks that we've been having, guys. If you don't know what Clubhouse is, hit us up on the Instagram Messenger at Enjoy the Walk Pod. Kind of chop it up with us, and we'll send you an invite. We got some invites to send out between myself and Dante. So, like I said, at Enjoy the Walk Pod, we'll send you over an invite if you're interested in joining these Clubhouse Talks every day at noon. A bunch of us kind of talking heads within the industry, not only within the golf industry, but talking heads within Canadian Football League and a lot of European guys and Scottish guys, teaching professionals from all across the globe get together and we just talk golf. We talk, what's going on this week. We talk travel. We talk, mindset. We talk swing. We talk everything within the game. And I know, Dante, you've been trying to hop on as much as possible, but how fun and epic are these Clubhouse talks that we get to do every day at noon?
I think that they're amazing, and I think the one biggest reason why I think they're amazing is anybody can hop on if you have the invite. If you get the invite from one of these people in this Clubhouse group, and one of the biggest reasons is the fact that, like what you just said, all over the globe. I mean, we had guys on today, guys and gals
Hmm.
from over the pond. In Scotland and the UK and all that, talking about, today's conversation of when I was able to hop on for a few minutes was kind of golf, and at this time it's kind of generally winter across the board, and
Sure.
when's it too cold for you to play, or kind of what factors really come into when is it unacceptable, or I'm
Hmm.
just gonna keep the sticks in the closet for the today, and take a pass on going out and playing 18. But what's your limit? It seemed like that was the conversation today, and it was kind
Yeah.
of cool to see what you know people in the States were saying and people overseas were saying, like kind of. And I think that's what the greatest part is. You're taking
What a
everybody.
stark contrast the Europeans had for what their limit was compared to what we had over here in the States.
Yeah, what were they saying again?
Oh my goodness. They were basically laughing at us for the wind threshold because they constantly are playing in high wind conditions over there. But they were also talking about too. I mean, we got on the topic of golf course architecture. There's actually a couple golf course architects in the chat typically every week as well, which is awesome to get their perspective on things like that. But they were talking about the difference between links golf and why it's meant to be played in windy conditions because you can hit the low ball, keep it low to the ground, and keep it out of the wind and watch it run compared to the soft, plush conditions of these American, Americanized courses, pretty much the resort style courses, lush, green, soft, much different than what they play over there. So it's just
Yeah.
always fun. You're always getting a new world view and a new perspective on the way you can look at everything within the game of golf.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's what was funny with today's conversation is they're talking about, just regular weekend players or
Mhm.
average AMs going out and playing and talking about, over there being able to hit multiple styles of shots and low ones, little knuckleballs, low spinners, high spinners, based on
Yep.
the elements that they play. And you probably have a conversation with 9 out of 10 times any like weekend amateur here and ask them if they can hit a certain shot. They're going to say they can, but in reality, they can't because it's kind of funny that we in the States, majority of us
Mhm.
that live in, four season areas will only play golf if it's 70 degrees or warmer. Some
For
people
sure.
don't even touch 60s, 50s, 40s, forget about it.
Yeah,
30s,
there's
adios.
a lot of fair weather golfers, which I'm sure we'll get into that conversation too a little later. But first, I just wanted to like kind of circle back here. Um, and take a look at everyone who's been in these chats, guys. If you follow the golf space on Instagram, I think you're going to recognize some of these names. Lauren Olaya, she's founder of a women's golf brand that's really been popping off here in the last few months, over the last year. Coach Rusty, trick shot artist, absolute stud. Colin McCarthy, also trick shot artist, absolute stud. Tisha Alion, she's trick shot artist, absolute killer within the game. She's phenomenal. Big Puma brand there with Coach Rusty and Tisha as well. So, and also we've got Parker Dalton, who kind of heads the whole thing. He's just an absolute fanatic of golf and just loves the game so much, and is kind of why we've gotten all this started. And then we've got guys like Black Men Golf and Black Girls Golf, and the kind of spearheads of those organizations as well. Chase from Buttercuts Golf, Golf Mommy, Tobias Golf Blog from over in Germany. I mean, the list goes on and on of incredible names that make these chats so enjoyable. And the best part is you guys can be a part of it just by downloading the Clubhouse app and asking us for an invite. So do that, guys. Go to at Enjoy the Walk Pod and check it out. DM us if you want the invite so we can ping you in, and you guys can be part of these talks and join and really enjoy a lot of golf talk outside of work. And if you're working, well, put the AirPods in and join the chat anyway.
Yeah, yeah, that's another too. I mean, there's certain sections where there's speakers, and then there's those just kind of listening. So if you can get the invite and download the app, you can still join in and just kind of listen in on the conversation. I knew I'd do that sometimes too because I'm constantly on and off the phone at my day job, but I'll hop in and hear these conversations, and and it's just great to be a part of because I mean, during these times right now, it's one way to keep the golfers community and the camaraderie going, especially the connections that you can make across the globe with all of these phenomenal influencers and golfers
Mhm.
out there. Just out there talking golf. It's a sport we just absolutely love. I mean, what you can't beat it.
No, you really can't. It's just it's exciting, guys. I hope you can be a part of it. And we talked about fair weather golf, Dante. The pros are getting quite the treat of non-fair weather golf this week out at Pebble Beach. It looks like it's going to be rainy and ugly there this week. So that begs the question. I always love watching Pebble Beach because it's always a challenge for these players. If it's sunny and not windy, it's kind of easy for these players. But when the wind picks up, the weather gets bad, as Pebble Beach can, notoriously do, it gets challenging for these players. The first item we have to look at is after Jordan Spieth has this phenomenal week, in beautiful desert conditions out in Arizona, how do you think he transitions his game over to a bad weather couple of days, if not all 4 days, out at Pebble Beach? And do you think he can contend when the elements are pushing against him?
That's I don't think he'll contend, but I don't think he's just gonna fall off and people are gonna say, "Oh, well, that was a fluke for Jordan Spieth." I think it just comes down to kind of our areas and our demographics and kind of our stereotypes. Like the U.S. or the majority of us are just fair weather golfers, and it comes to the PGA Tour. Look at the PGA Tour schedule. They
Yep.
always go to where it's like the perfect climate for golf. I mean, it's like a nice 70, 75-degree day, sunny on the majority throughout the board because like they start from the west and then as the seasons early in like January and then they work their way out to Florida and then back out west and then back east and then once they're back to like fully east again, it's pretty much middle of spring and middle of summer coming. So I mean the PGA Tour on the US side of things really is all about fair weather golf. I mean, so I think it's tough for a lot of these players because normally they don't play in that. But you look at the European tour side of things, these guys are constantly battling the elements. So I think it's going to benefit them when it comes to that. But as the Jordan
Mhm.
Spieth's thing, I don't really know how well he really plays in bad weather. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see. But then again, his confidence is right now is through the roof. So
Mhm.
we'll see. I don't think he's going to really. I wouldn't say he's not going to do too little. I don't think he's going to be doing too much. I think he'll make some fans. You know, he'll be the talk of the town. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll just have to stay tuned and watch. I really can't. You really can't predict weather, and I don't really think you can predict the player's game when they play in the weather. But I,
No,
I don't think it's
absolutely.
going to be something like -10. You're not going
I
to see
think I think if one thing can be said about him, it maybe it's, he does like the non-fair weather because he plays so well over at the Open Championship. I guess like you said, it's such a toss-up when the weather turns bad of who, not only who plays well, but who gets some of these good breaks if it gets really wet, who's kind of getting some bounces here or there, who gets some plug lies, whatever. It's something we're gonna have to wait and see. I think something you mentioned though that I really like. Um, is just Englishmen in general. I think Englishmen really play well in poor weather conditions. I don't know what it is, if we're pampered over here in the United States or what, but some names to throw out at you that I think might contend. Francesco Molinari kind of going off a little hot streak out in Saudi Arabia, finishing top 10. We haven't heard his name in ages, right? And then Paul Casey, also, I love his game lately. He's kind of transformed himself into a high end European contender again. So I like that he's in the field. And another name, Alex Noren. I don't think we've heard too much of him, but he kind of creeps himself up the leaderboard these last couple weeks. So if you're talking European guys, I really like one of those three to make some noise and maybe peak themselves at a W this week.
Yeah, they're I'd watch. I watch the guys who keep eye on those who play in inclement weather a lot more than our guys that are more on the state side of things because that's just the way it's set up. I mean, it's just kind of how it is. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just the way things are and how the setup is, and it's sometimes I honestly, when it comes to playing in inclement weather, I wish and I try to actually play more in it because
Mhm.
it seems like anytime I sign up for a tournament, there's always crazy wind or it rains the night before, and it's just
Never
some type of.
ideal.
It's never ideal. It's just weird. I don't know if it's just a curse with me signing up or whatnot, but any tournament I sign up, there's always there's always some type of inclement weather, either the day before or that day of, or coming in, or something affects to where it's not 100% fair weather. So
Mhm.
I do recommend people if you go out and get a chance to go out and play and there's bad weather in the forecast, just bring some clothes to prepare for it and go out and play. Because actually, on the beneficial side of things, most likely the course will probably be empty because not
Mhm.
many people want to play in inclement weather. So,
Well, and I
hey,
think that's the biggest thing.
book
You hit the nail
deeper.
on the head. You hit the nail on the head. Just go prepared and know, go in as a mindset like you're going to get wet or you're going to be a little cold. Because if you go there expecting everything to be prim and proper and then it kind of shits on your parade per se, then you're kind of, you're disappointed, right? Um, so I mean, I like it. I like practicing I like the idea of practicing, I guess, in inclement weather. What they're looking out there in Pebble Beach is about a high of 55 every day and rain Thursday through Saturday. There'll be some sunshine on Sunday, so they will finish in the sun. But this carries into, I think, our final topic of the day. What's that threshold for you and me of will you play, will you not play? Like I said, Pebble Beach 56, 58 and raining. What's your threshold? How bad does it have to get? What's the wind got to be like? What's the perfect scenario to not make Dante go out and play? And what are you willing to play in?
Well, you can come to my club. We're all mutters. I mean, you'll get guys out. You'll get There's groups that were going out the past couple weeks, like 24, 28 guys deep playing in 20-degree weather.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big camaraderie thing where we play, but personally, it I'll play if it's not frozen. If the course is receptive where I can take a nice divot and the ball can stick on the greens, I'll play. But then there's factors on that. If it's below 40, I'm looking at obviously it's got to be like 33 and above, right? It can't be frozen. And then another time, I guess you can say when you're looking at weather playing, you always want to look at not what the high is going to be for the day, you want to look at the previous night and what their low is going to be because pretty much that's what you're going to be playing in majority of the day. Because think about it, the high only gets up to maybe 3, 4 o'clock or 2, 3, and then it
Mm-hmm.
goes back down. I mean, you're not going to be sitting there at 9, 10 in the morning and it's going to be 35, 36 degrees.
No,
So
no chance.
you always want to look at the low. But for me, I've played in 20, 30 degree weather. I mean, it depends. It really depends on the ground. The ground can't be frozen. So I'm saying if it's anywhere in between like 33 to 39 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
uh, a lot of factors come in. Is it going to be a still day? Is the sun going to be out? Is is there going to be rain? If it's rain, forget about it. If it's wind, we'll have to see like, all right, is it going to be an overcast day or is it going to be sunny? Um, that depends on the factor. And then you really kind of want to focus on like what degree of wind. I think if it gets anywhere 10 and above, or we're kind of pushing it depending on what the temperature is. But I mean, 40 and above, I'm pretty much going to be out there playing.
I agree. I
No
agree
problem.
100%. I've had plenty of times where I've went out to the range. On a couple points you made, I went out to the range when I knew it was dead empty, and because it was kind of like drizzling or even kind of a steady rain, but nothing that wasn't like unbearable, and just practiced. I've practiced for hours out in the rain, but not torrential downpours. There's a difference between getting wet and getting just absolutely saturated.
Soaked.
Yeah, where you don't have a chance to ever like breathe because it's raining so hard.
When you get to the point where like I'm not a fan of the rain gloves. I do not. I have to dunk those in water and in order for those to work for me. So as soon as I have any type of slippage on the grip with my hands, I'm out. I'm done. I'm not playing. But if it is like a steady sprinkle or a steady mist or whatnot,
Mhm.
that's not going to bother me as long as I can have a nice. If I'm wearing enough, like it's got to be enough layers, but it can't be too much to where I'm restricted. But it's also I got to be able to have a swing and I got to be able to have a grip. If I can do that and the ground's receptive, I'm playing.
Absolutely. I agree with
Simple
that.
as that.
Now, I will say this year in particular has made me a little bit of a softy because I started my year out in California, right? So here we are in California to start out January, and I come back and it's 30s and cold. Now, I was slated to play on Super Bowl Sunday. It ended up snowing down here, so I didn't get out to play. But I was ready. I was mentally ready to go out in 40-degree weather and play. But I think it's kind of the same deal. I'm on board with the way you mentioned it. If the ground's frozen, I have no desire to go play.
Yeah, because
Now I will
it doesn't
say
become golf.
no, it doesn't. And I will
When the
say
ball bounces off the green, forget it.
the combination for me, I'm not worried about getting cold. I can always be warm. It's not about being cold. It's about the actual course itself playing in a frozen manner, in which is just totally
Exactly.
not enjoyable at the end of
No,
the day.
no. Because especially if you go out maybe with you or a buddy, it's, nah, why don't we get a rain check and we'll come back out another day. But in like a group setting where you're having like 30 dudes come out or gals playing whatever type of game you're playing, and there's like a showing, you can kind of deal with it because you know what, you're out here for the camaraderie. But when you're just going out, I just don't think it's worth it, because it's not golf. It's a good walk. You're out there enjoying the walk, clearly, no pun
100%. Now,
intended.
speaking of walking, this was an interesting talking point on our clubhouse chat today, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. What's the wind threshold for you? Like, how windy does it have to get before you just say, "Forget this, I'm packing it in and calling it a day"?
I think that's like another thing that kind of goes back to temperature. Like last Saturday I played and it got up to near mid 40s,
Mhm.
and we had a steady 13-mile-an-hour wind blowing in our face all day because we were by the shore point too. We were not too far from all the, you know, the the shore at like the beach, and
Sure.
obviously when you're near water, like the wind picks up, and it did not bother me really that much. But when you get to a point where it's like 13 miles per hour, and it's in the high 30s, and it's making it feel like low 30s and the 20s, then I'm out. But if we're talking prime season, if you're getting somewhere in the 30-mile an hour, 25 to 30-mile-an-hour winds, yeah, I don't know. That's some tough conditions to play there.
Dude, I think again, spot on. I've said it a couple times. You've been spot on, but you're spot on again. A cold wind is
Forget it.
so unbearable compared to a warm wind. Like if it's midsummer and it's windy, tee it up all day long. I don't really care. If
No.
it's if it's cold, if it's already cold and it's blustery, I mean beyond blustery to the point where like it makes your eyes water. It's so cold. I'm out.
Yeah.
Calling it.
When you when you look at the weather app and it says high of 35, and but next to it says real feel 29,
Yeah,
I think that's where you pack it in and you call it a day. You just
you
go on some
have to.
YouTube and watch some old Tiger rounds or something, or find maybe find some indoor simulator or something. That's where, yeah, you really don't want to go out, because I mean it's just that makes for a grueling long day, and then you get the wind burn, and when you come home you're just exhausted and you're tired. For some reason it's crazy how the wind can just knock you out, literally.
Dude, I totally agree. It's one of those things where it makes or breaks, I feel like, a winter round, depending on how windy it is. So, guys, chime in. We're going to throw some polls up when this podcast release on Thursday, and just get your guys' opinions on the weather and everything else we've talked about the rest of today. The Pebble Beach No-Am, as Jeff Mosini would say. And I hope you guys can join us on these clubhouse chats. They're a lot of fun. Like Dante said, you don't even have to chime in and just chat. You can kind of listen along if you don't want to chime in. But the beauty of it is you can chime in if you want to. And that's the fun of it. We get so many different people talking on this app every day at 12 o'clock noon. So, guys, I hope you can come join us. Like I said, DM us at Enjoy the Walk Pod if you want to be a part of it. And then you can go to www.enjoythewalkpod.com to check out our latest merch. Guys, we will be launching a Masters specific line of merch that'll come out, I believe, the first week of April is what we're slated for. So I hope you guys can check that out. If you guys are interested in pre-ordering, we'll throw some of these designs up if you want to pre-order. be our guest, just let us know at Enjoy the Walk Pod and www.enjoythewalkpod.com. So that's it from us this week, guys. As always, get out there, carry your clubs, and if you can, go play some golf and enjoy the walk.
That's the stuff. One shot at a time.